Okay, 7:01 p.m. Monday, August the 9th, 2021. I will call to order this regular monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees. We are awaiting Trustee Giles, who will be just a few minutes late. And we have Trustee Darfler participating remotely from a previously disclosed location. So this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Item number 2 on our agenda, any changes, any additions or deletions? Okay. Just waiting to hear back from Jessica whether she wants us to wait or proceed. Okay, well, I haven't heard back, so we will, we'll skip to item number 3, which is our first public comment period. And I don't see any member of the public present who isn't here for some specific business already, present in person or remotely. So we will move ahead to reports from representatives, and I do see Ann Corman just joined us. So Ann, if you're ready, we are ready for you.
Hi there. I don't have a ton of things on my report, but the two main things, the first one, of course, has to do with COVID and our recent uptick in cases, active cases. And you might have seen on our health department site or in press releases, about half of the positive cases are turning out to be people who are vaccinated. Typically, as far as we have a small percentage of people, well, a small overall number of people, but it's been 80 or 90 the last couple of days active cases, which we haven't had, in over 6 months. So it is concerning, but about half the cases are people who are vaccinated. And from what we're hearing around the country is that of course, you can catch it, and we're presuming it's the Delta variant, which we're waiting to hear back from. Cornell is helping us do some of that tracing to see if it is some of the analysis. So we're recommending not requiring it, that people wear masks if you're indoors, if you're, especially if you're with somebody besides your regular family pod that you have, because we have had clusters of not only people who are unvaccinated spreading it to people who are vaccinated, but people who are vaccinated spreading it amongst themselves. And so we are pretty concerned about that. We were up to, let's see, I think 10 people in the hospital, but I'll double check that while we're talking here. So that's our biggest concern. We're looking at the county at requiring vaccination. Our numbers show that about 70% of the county employees are vaccinated, and we'd like that number to be higher. So we're looking at the possibility of requiring vaccination, and if you're not vaccinated, to have testing. Probably it'll be like once a week that we'll have people tested, not just for the whole county, but well, I guess it is. It's to help our numbers a little bit overall, but it's because a lot of our departments are public facing, and we certainly don't want to contribute it to being spread. And we're encouraging all of our employees to wear masks inside, but haven't required it yet. But we might be getting there. Let's see. Here's our numbers. We have 78 active cases. Yeah, 10 people in the hospital, so that's a bit concerning. I think it was since, I can't remember if it was right before or when I saw you guys last time a month ago, we had another person pass away due to COVID. So unfortunately now there's 32 people who have passed away. So we're asking people, to be extra cautious. And whereas before it might be if one person had COVID, 1 or 2 people would get infected. Now it's anywhere from 4 to 9 people become infected. So we're very, very concerned about that. And we're hoping with people wearing masks that it will start to go down. And then another thing that we're looking at is whether to spend any of the money that we got, the ARPA funds, recovery funds from the federal government. We've been going back and forth whether to put some aside for the community and how much, and would we put it in categories? So we're still trying to figure that out. And now that the COVID numbers are going up, that gives us a little bit more concern. Should we wait a little bit to decide that? Because how much is the county going to be hit financially if our numbers go up? I know Cornell is requiring all students to be vaccinated unless, I believe there's a couple of exemptions, but they're going to be vaccinated, and they're also going to be tested too. They're going to have routine testing. I haven't heard from Ithaca College yet, but those are the main things that are going on right now.
Thanks, Ann. Any board member questions for Ann?
Can I ask you guys, I see everybody's masked there. I know at the Ulysses Town Hall, they're requiring people to be masks. Are you guys requiring it for the village town, or the village hall?
I am requiring it of any member of the public who enters Village Hall. I am leaving it to the discretion of department heads and the employees based on their own comfort level, as we have pretty well, how Village Hall is set up with our office space. So I'm not requiring it across the board. I'm leaving some discretion to the employees and department heads based on their vaccination statuses and comfort level as to whether they wear masks themselves all day, every day. But I am requiring it of the public.
Okay, yeah, just good to know what's happening in the different areas. So I support whatever you guys are doing, and I appreciate seeing everybody there being masked.
Any other questions or comments for Ann? All right, well, thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 5 on our agenda is Matt from MRB Group is with us in person to talk to us about the bids that were submitted for the stormwater drainage effort that we're doing in a couple of different sections of the village. Take it away, Matt.
Thanks, Rodin. Bids were received, open on July 29th, 2 p.m. 5 bids were received. There was good interest in the project throughout the bidding phase. As part of that project, we had a base bid, which was East Seneca Road, increasing the pipe size through there, doing some swale clearing and grubbing, and some drainage improvements through there. We also then incorporated 2 alternates, just knowing cost estimate going in and where the grant award was at. It would be stretching the budget. So we broke up Congress Street as an alternate, and then East Seneca Street as a second alternate, giving the village the flexibility to fit the project into what the budget was there. So with that, the low bid for the base bid was $72,000. It was Boland's Excavating and Topsoil out of Conklin, New York. If you add it out of Conklin, New York, if you added in their base bid, alternate 1, which was Congress Street, alternate 2, which was Seneca Street, and the contingency built into the contract, the project was up at $245,000. So as we've seen recently, bidding environment is volatile. Price material, just as July 1, we've heard from suppliers that pipe material has gone up. So the higher bid numbers, were a bit higher than we anticipated. But again, it's kind of the nature that we've been dealing with. So with that and reviewing the 5 bids side by side, and just looking at base bid, the second low bidder on the base bid was only about $1,500 higher. So from a spread, there was, decent interest from the potential bidders. No big questions really came up. Fairly straightforward with the scope and nature of the stormwater work. So I can leave it to that if there's any questions from the board before I take the next step.
Questions from that?
So with that, we've, maintaining under budget for the grant award. We've recommended going with the base bid, which was East Seneca Road and the allowance. With the allowance, that comes to $87,000 even. East Seneca Road's been an area that's been identified as, an issue, a stormwater issue that we've been working through the village with in our mapping and identifying and then prioritizing. So in the grand scheme of things, we feel that this is, a viable project to fix an issue that's been some concern for the village over the last few years. And that also fits under the grant amount. So with that, if we're in, we have the notice of award for $87,000 to Boland's Excavating and Topsoil. Within 15 days, they got to provide bonds and insurances. Schedule would have construction beginning August 30th. Granted, they don't have any issue getting all their paperwork and into MRB. We can review, pull the documents together, and at that point, August 30th, we would have a notice to proceed. Pre-construction meeting, we'd sign the contract formally with the contractor, and then that would start the construction window. They have 60 days to complete the work. That was for the grand scheme of things. So by all means, should be plenty of time for them to complete the base bid work on Seneca Road and wrapping around the prospect.
Whose responsibility is it to contact all of the affected property owners as to work that might be done either in their yard, driveway, so forth?
I think it would probably be best served to have the DPW get in contact. We can certainly do that. If we want to have property owners, at a pre-construction, certainly, could talk about, but typically it would be the DPW to provide that heads up. And
so that would be something we would have them do between tonight when we award this and the pre-construction meeting.
yes.
And then similarly, who will receive their work from the client's perspective?
So it's phase 2 as we get into construction, and an item that we've passed along is a proposal for MRB to do the construction administration, as well as doing spot construction observation inspections. And what we've budgeted is for us, MRB, to come down, maybe it's once a week for half a day, come in on a Friday or come in on a Wednesday, oversee some of the construction, see some of the work. Maybe there's something critical that's coming on when we're going and crossing the water main that we know is in that area. We'd be able to come on, be on site to oversee that and monitor that progress. But we've also think that there's, the ability for the DPW to lend a hand there and oversee some of the work that they're familiar with. So.
And forgive me for not remembering the scope of work that Ross is doing today, but this is a separate budgetary consideration.
Nope, it's an additional. Yep.
The other
We
question?
have that one?
It's next.
It's next.
Any other questions, comments from that? All right, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to adopt this notice of award, which would award to Boland's Excavating and Topsoil Incorporated out of Conklin, New York. The base bid only, plus allowances, for a total of $87,000. This will perform the work on East Seneca Road. We will not be awarding either of the alternates at this time for this project. Someone like to move that? Move.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion?
So is there a situation where there could be money left over and you could pick one alternate? Or is that not likely?
That is not impossible to consider. Whether or not we would do that is this was part of the conversation. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Do you want to keep one for yourself and I'll take one back, or I can scan one to you?
The next item, which Matt's already alluded to, in our Dropbox, you'll see that there are 4 number 5s, not to make it any more confusing. The fourth, number 5, is the construction administration and observation. Quote includes various administrative functions as well as observation of work being performed. The administrative side totals $5,500. The observation side is an hourly rate, which includes travel expenses. And it could be less than the total that's here, but it's a not to exceed total of $3,200 for a total of $8,700 for MRB's assistance in the project management portion of this stormwater project. So before we move that, does anyone have any questions on that presented price for Matt? Right, then I would entertain a motion to accept the proposal from MRB Group for construction administration and construction observation for a total of $8,700. Moved. Motion and a second. Any board discussion?
Yeah, I do, actually. So I don't see report. Would there be a piece of this that would be reported back to us? It's obviously one thing for you to observe. But I'd like to know.
Yeah, absolutely. We can provide updates throughout construction. You know, it was scheduled for 60 days. Probably the biggest lead time is going to be pipe, you know, maybe 4 weeks that it may take for that. And then after that, I see it being wrapped up pretty quickly. You know, come in, get the work done.
I'm not looking for anything specific, just to know that that's.
Absolutely, 100%.
Any other comments, questions, or discussion? Let's look this up again.
No, it's the document. It's very good.
Yes. Okay. Then hearing no additional questions, comments, or discussion, all in favor of adopting the or accepting the proposal from MRB Group, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Matt.
Yeah. Keep an original for yourself and I'll take one with.
Okay. Anything else for us, Matt?
I think you've been kept in correspondence with some of the other items that we've been going back and forth on. And working through with Ben and Dusty. So as questions come up or need to come down and meet with the village, glad to come on down and do so.
Okay, great.
Ben and Jessica, your mics are real low. I don't know if they're off or not. If you
Just
take a look.
off, and so is Ben.
Thank you. Speak up is not often said to me, but I will.
Now it's crystal clear.
All right, Matt, here you go.
Thanks, Vernon.
Thank you.
We will be in touch.
All right, drive safe.
Yeah, is there anything else you'd like me to stick around for?
Thank you.
Don't think so.
No, I have no MRV questions.
Maybe.
Do you know when it's gonna rain next?
It's every other day.
We all got used to not having to water the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good.
No, I don't think so.
We can hold on till fall.
There's one item which we may want a consult on, but we may not need it either, so. I'll let Dusty talk to you about it if we need it.
Okay.
Thank you much. All right. Item number 6 is our consent agenda. We have 2 sets of meeting minutes from June the 14th and July the 12th. And we have our monthly bills to pay, which I will just read off briefly. We have the general fund abstract in the amount of $209,189.09. We have a EMS billing abstract in the amount of $14,770.58. Water fund abstract, $111,896.77. Sewer fund abstract, $20,669.12. Trust and agency abstract, $44,775.33. And so I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. Motion, do I have a second? I will second. Any discussion, questions or comments?
Is there a way to change the format so that we read motions into the 3 page?
Well, it just copied the entire, I mean, it's verbatim.
No,
I mean,
You mean the boxes, like change the way the lines look?
I mean, it's not a big deal.
But form formatting. Yes, there is a way, Ben. Do you want to work on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do whatever makes, yeah, whatever works. You tell me.
Hey, Miss Vicky, in relation to the general fund, the window repair, what was that for? I'm just curious.
Can you tell me which one it is? Joy?
How's the best way to tell you that? Voucher number?
Yes.
Okay, voucher number, totally just curious, 7349. Foreman Enterprises window repair.
Oh, that was the.
Oh, on an ambulance. Oh, okay. I'm like,
No,
what windows did we have to replace in
It's charged to
buildings?
fire.
What's that?
It's charged to fire. So.
Can I see that from this abstract that it's charged to fire? No, right?
Because it's the 3410. That's.
Thank
that's
you.
a Fire number.
Okay,
What's the date?
The date of it. I can bring them down because you haven't asked for them, but I can.
it's okay. That makes more
Do you
sense.
want it? I can.
No, I think that I'm-
Scan it and email it to you tomorrow.
No, I see window on the abstract and I think of buildings and
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
think of, right? So that's
Yeah.
great. I've
No,
already
it's gotta
seen
be
this
on a
and
fire truck probably,
fantastic. Thank you.
especially this morning. That's okay.
Any other questions regarding either the minutes or the abstract?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none and all in favor of adopting the consent agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item number 7 on the agenda is our board member reports, starting with myself. In the Dropbox under 7AI, you have 2 items. It is time already, believe it or not. I can't believe it and I don't like it, but it's almost September, which means it's time to authorize our deer management program for what I believe will be the 7th year. 8th year, sorry. This will be our 8th year. This requires 2 items. One is we have to, by resolution, adopt the Trumansburg Deer Management Program, which is the first 7AI, which is substantially the same as every year previous to this, except that the dates have changed. It is a narrative explaining why we are asking for a deer management permit. The second 7AI is the actual deer management application itself. And so I would entertain a motion to adopt the first of the documents, which is our Trumansburg Deer Management Program summary for the purpose of operating the deer management program for another year and sending this document to DEC along with the application. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So second.
Any questions on this piece?
No.
Hearing none and all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And then part 2 is I would entertain a motion to authorize me to sign the deer damage permit application itself as required by DEC and send it off to them this week along with the adopted program guidelines.
So moved. Oh, second, damn it.
Any questions on the application itself?
Were you able to fill out this application online or is this the miracle of like some Adobe fill-in?
This is another PDF fill-in that we reuse each year.
Cool.
Any other questions, comments? I will just state for the record, as it states on the application itself, we took 65 deer last year, 40 the year before that, and 56 3 years ago. So there's some volatility in that number, but this past year was a good one. If there are no additional comments or questions, then all in favor of authorizing me to sign the application itself, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Second item, which is just to inform the board, there isn't any action to be taken just yet, but a resident of South Street contacted me earlier this summer with concern about the drainage ditch at the corner of South and Camp Street, which is relatively deep, and it's at a portion of the road that feels a little bit it's a little bit narrower. And in particular, the concern had to do with traffic, both vehicle and foot during school, and asked whether the village would be interested in filling it in. Normally, drainage ditches, although they are in the right of way, if they're private property, we usually leave it to the property owner to decide whether they want to ditch or not. Given the route that school buses now take down South Street and onto Schoolhouse Lane, and although we have nice sidewalks there, the heavy foot traffic on South Street, I thought it might make sense actually for the village to foot the bill to fill that in. So I've gotten a quote from Dusty. It's in that $5,000 range in terms of material cost, at least as of the moment. And I've been in touch with the property owner at the corner of South and Camp, and they are amenable to letting the village, at village expense, fill in that ditch. They may, and it's something that DPW has suggested, we may want to give them the option of, at their expense, tying in drainage laterals out of that piece of property because it's fairly wet and low lying. If they wanted to tie it into that drainage at their expense, then they can certainly do that at the same time, rather than trying to dig it up later. So I will certainly reach out to them and give them that option. But I'm looking to, it doesn't require board approval because of the spending limits, but I am looking to get that done hopefully in the next month or so. Back to school looming. So if you see either some numbers on the abstract or our DPW guys doing work there, that's what that relates to.
So can you help me understand just visually a little bit? This is like if I'm coming out of camp and facing South Street, like it's to the right, we're in between and the consideration is that, because it is a huge ditch, the dogs love it. That if someone needed to get off the road, there's a big ditch because they wouldn't be using the sidewalk.
There was concern for vehicles in particular, school buses, slippery roads.
Like maybe not noticing there is even a ditch or come
Assuming
snow.
that there was more of a shoulder to the road.
Okay.
It was because the rest of South Street doesn't have.
Doesn't have that,
Doesn't have
right.
that same ditching on either side of Camp Street.
Okay.
It was more of a vehicle safety issue than anything.
Okay.
The property owner brought it to my attention.
And then
Not-
it's, so
not-
it'll be like
I
a
should point out,
culvert.
for the record, it's not the property owner where the ditch is. It's a different
Different.
South Street property owner who drives by there every day. It was noticing this concern.
So it's like they'll just put in like a culvert and bury it or
They
something
put
like
in
that.
this either
Or whatever,
30 or
drain tile?
36-inch pipe.
Okay.
Covered in gravel and then topsoil and seed.
And has the property owner of the ditch location been asked about tying yet?
Property owner has been asked about tie-in, has not committed.
Okay.
They have verbally committed to the village filling in the ditch.
Great.
Village council has suggested that there may be some desire on the village's part for something in writing, depending on whether they want, especially if they want any lateral tie-in, who's doing what work and who's paying for which kind of thing.
Definitely.
May take some lawyers' dollars. But there's no issue, at least in terms of agreement to what to do at this point.
Okay, cool.
Then the last item under my report is, some of you may or may not be aware of an organization that has existed for some time, rather loosely, and it's the Hugo Lake Watershed Municipal Organization. They leave the L out of their acronym and call themselves WIO. Former town supervisor Liz Thomas is currently, or is now, the new chair of this organization. We are the only, I believe, the only Finger Lake, Hugo Lake being the only Finger Lake that doesn't have a formal watershed authority. For example, in Schuyler County, you cannot put in a septic anywhere without the watershed, the Seneca County watershed approving it. We don't have anything with that level of authority. So the organization, for a whole host of obvious reasons, is looking to ramp up their presence as well as potentially their authority to help regulate activity in the Hugo Lake watershed, as well as help with things like the algal blooms and runoff and so forth. We are a member. Every municipality in the watershed is a member. There are dues, and not every municipality pays those dues, which means they don't get to vote. However, I believe we do pay ours, so that means we have the ability to participate on this board, vote on matters that come before the organization. However, we don't have a rep. And so I have been asked to find out whether anyone on this board would just love to be the village of Trumansburg's rep. That's why Mr. Darfler made sure he was in attendance
Right.
tonight, so that we didn't get voluntold after the fact. And so I'm not interested necessarily in drafting anyone, but I think it's probably a good organization for us to be participating in.
Does the park have representation on this board?
I don't believe so. That's not to say they don't. I'm just thinking through the list of names on the emails. Should I take that back? I think. Fred probably
I would
does
think they're
attend.
certainly, I mean, they have a stake in Habs,
Yeah.
right?
I think Fred does attend the meetings.
How often do they meet?
That was my question.
I believe that's a good question.
Monthly?
Let me see if I have that. It's not more than monthly. For some reason, I had quarterly in mind, but I think monthly is right. And I don't still have the email. Just last week.
Liz doesn't say explicitly, but she seems to allude to a monthly.
Yeah, this one was.
Email for you.
We got the email with 8/3.
Monthly sounds right.
And last meeting was on 7/20.
And then the last week, yeah, the next one's 8/25. So it is last week of the month.
I mean, I would definitely start that and understand more about it and then say, I can or cannot commit to the volume of work of this. I'd be willing to explore it unless Keith Hannon, you perked up a little bit. Some also don't need to.
It would depend on frequency of meetings and is,
And work scope, like do they currently have a giant project that they're about to undertake that's going to require, like what is the process?
yeah,
going on?
or and what is their ability to attend meetings online?
Right. I'm sure there must be the ability to attend meetings online, but I think given how we're operating under open meetings law is written, you would have to come here. And they would have to publish this site as a remote meeting location. So that if the public wanted to attend, they could.
Do we know where their meetings are?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah.
Where do they currently meet?
Do they bump around? Like do you drive to Aurora once a month?
It must be remote.
Their last name.
That would be, I mean, that's a huge
It's a huge-
geographic area. And
Yeah.
both sides of the lake make that very difficult for those of us living sort of in the middle.
Yeah,
They-
especially
they
for
must be
monthly,
remote.
maybe like quarterly, we get together and skip the.
They must be remote. So for context, they are working on rewriting their bylaws at the moment. Which is, I think, sort of the critical concern in terms of us having a representative. I don't believe, I mean, I think my understanding in sort of just casual conversation with Liz is that this is a very committed core group of people. So us having a really engaged representative at all meetings at all times is less important because they are,
They're doing the work, they're moving.
they're very, and it's, my sense is that it's very much people like Liz who are very dedicated and very able and really are there with their full selves. Just, people who care deeply about this. So I don't think for someone who was not committed to sort of duplicating that level of output, I don't think that would be necessary.
Right.
Is my,
And so is the
My
composition either male or female heavy? at the moment?
I have absolutely no idea.
I will say my interest has been piqued in this, at least in having representation, not to do any heavy lifting necessarily,
Yeah,
but to get, I mean, I get the emails and the minutes, but to have some sense of reporting back to this board about where things are going with the organization. So the reason my interest has been piqued just recently is I have made Liz aware of this, and I've made the town of Covert aware of this, because that's the location, but if you go down to the Boy Scout camp where our original and first primary water
Yep.
well is. And then of course, you go through the Boy Scout camp, there's a lot of cottages back there. So I was at a friend's cottage down that way a couple of months ago, and I noticed on my way through that in the Boy Scout camp property, almost immediately across from our water well, but set back further, there's been a lot of logging. And by a lot of logging, I mean dozens of acres have been logged. Now, I don't know what that means. Nobody seems to know. And maybe the Boy Scouts are selling the timber, who knows? But given I'll say, uncertainty of the future of the organization at the national level, especially after recent, well, they are in a bankruptcy filing. They've also had a settlement of a large case. I wonder what's happening to the property, not just from the perspective of it being the site of our first primary well, but also in terms of what the future of that property might mean from that point, and for the lake, because I never begrudge anyone who wants to make a dollar, but I don't know that I'd want to see 250 room resort put on that spot.
Or necessarily condos of that scale.
Right.
It's a big impact.
Right. So that was brought to my attention by some of the residents who live down there. Some of them weren't sure what was happening. I wasn't sure what was happening. No one seems to be sure what's happening. But this organization would be, if it had any real jurisdictional authority, would be one that could potentially help to monitor that. That's not a DEC issue unless there's any dumping. So that's where I'm kind of thinking, what structures are in place. Now, that property that we have that lake well on is in the town of Coburg, so that is a completely separate issue when we talk about things like zoning and whatnot. So I don't know that this organization can necessarily help in the short term, but I think it's something that's important long term.
I want it. I'll take
Okay.
it.
All right.
And then I will tell you if I can't manage it. And
Yeah,
then I'll say,
no, I would be happy to try to.
okay,
You need to pass it on.
great.
What we could do is I'll ask Liz about, if the two of you are interested, I'll ask about primary and alternate representation.
Take it.
And
That's
then,
great.
just like the consortium, if this does turn into a thing, then at least whoever can make that month's meeting.
That's great.
Can go.
Thank you. Good idea.
And I'll ask about meetings, how they are attended.
Big Tammy, third alternate like T-Con.
Right.
Question, definitely.
Yeah.
General.
Oh, absolutely.
So I would-
I did wear a mask with all of them.
Even the remote ones. All right, that's it for me unless, no, it's not. I spoke too soon. So I wasn't going to address it, but trustee Hannon convinced me otherwise. Over the last 2 weeks or so, I've received, I think I'm up to 500 and change emails and counting, all with identical verbiage and language with respect to the Trumansburg Fair, which is the fair that's been held every year for the last, God knows how long, at the T-Burg Fairgrounds, and their inclusion of animals of various type for either observation or interaction with fairgoers. I have not felt the need. I was going to ignore the emails, as I do anytime I get spammed with anything over several hundred emails, primarily because the fairgrounds is not within the village.
Right.
The fairgrounds is a privately owned piece of property. And the village has no jurisdiction whatsoever there. But I'll let Keith speak. I thought what you said in that email was at least worth entering into the record as far as addressing the fact that people have a concern over what is taking place there, though we do not have any say in it.
Yeah, I don't really expect us to be able to take any action, even if we wanted to, because of what you just said. I do think, even though there were many, I imagine, out-of-town correspondence, I know there is a local interest as well. So I think it's important to at least bring it forward and say, we hear what people have said. We are limited in our power and how we can influence the organization. I also think that when something shares your namesake, when you are the Village of Trumansburg, and every year is the Trumansburg Fair that has a parade that goes down our main street, to expect people to divorce us from what that fair represents is not always easy. I think, you know, if people come from out of town and they see the Trumansburg Fair and what's at the Trumansburg Fair, maybe they're looking to maybe they're visiting for the summer and they're considering moving here. Like, let's go to the Trumansburg's Fair, right? Even though it's not Trumansburg's with an apostrophe, it's the Fairgrounds Fair. One could see one's fair as a representation of the town, even though, again, it's not in our jurisdiction. So that was my only thought. You know, this is unrelated to animals, but, you know, I had a very memorable experience 2 years ago. Obviously, there was no fair last year. And I don't want to really open up a can of worms here, but I was getting off the Ferris wheel with my son, and right behind us, getting off the car behind us, was a Black woman and her daughter. And plain as day on the controls of the fairground operating machine was the Confederate flag.
Oh.
And so to me, it's like, I don't really not interested in fighting flag battles, but if that woman and her daughter are touring Trumansburg and they're like, let's check out the local fair,
Right.
and that's what they see, they're not thinking,
I'm
oh, but you know
welcome
what,
here.
that's Coleman Brothers.
Right.
That's not the Village of Trumansburg. That's not how they do
It's in the
business.
town of Ulysses.
Right. You know, it's not, yeah. So it's just like, I remember having that thought 2 years ago, and made me think of just how unfortunate that is, but also how powerless I feel about influencing anything at the fairgrounds. So the fact that people have come forward, you know, with regards to the animal treatment, I guess I can have a sympathy for that, while also understanding that I don't know really what we could do, even if we wanted to. We could send a stern letter saying we don't like that part of the fair or that other part of the fair that I just mentioned. But I don't know if that really gets us anywhere. But yeah, so I don't know if anyone else has an opinion on the idea that, you know, something that does parade on our main street and shares our name. We're very much in the weeds of jurisdiction, and I just don't know that the average person is. You know, I think even if you do live here, I think you see the Trumansburg Fair and you think Trumansburg,
Yeah.
and what happens in that fair could reflect upon us in that way. And so, you know, I know it's, you know, just little talk with Roared a while back. I know that fair has not always been, you know, a hotbed of decency, shall we say, in terms of what goes on there. But I just thought it was at least worthy of thinking out loud and talking about, you know, what we have the power to do and don't, just so people hear it from us that, you know, the
Yeah.
concerns have not gone unheard, and that we can share them too.
Yeah, no, that point is well taken. You know, same thing would apply to grassroots, of good and bad.
Yeah.
In terms of its association with you know,
But
that-
I think
Go ahead, Ben.
one opportunity, I do know that the town is taking up the idea of animals specifically. If we wanted to let our support or whatever we wanted to put together known to the town, I think that would be reasonable and a reasonable action to take if we wanted to have that happen.
So a point of curiosity about the jurisdiction in town, if it's being private property, but it's in the town of Ulysses, did they have any way to say what happens exactly? Okay. Unless it's breaking an actual law.
Well, I
like
think that's
prostitution.
I think that's the conversation at the town level is creating some sort of regulation around exotic animals and however you want to define that. And there that's kind of what they're sorting out, is how to structure that, working with their lawyer and so forth. But I think that's their intent, is to, it's not going to change anything for this month's fair, but going forward, something saying we don't allow exotic animals, or whatever it is that, finds the line between what people are upset about with the fair, but the Hugo Nature Center isn't impacted in some sort of weird way. Just finding that line,
right.
and then passing that legislation.
Well, it sounds like Ben and Keith are sort of invested, and maybe a good next move, if we're interested, is to find out what the town is doing and see if that is something that we want to lend our voice to.
I mean, logistically, it would make more sense to, if the town is contemplating some type of legislation, it would make more sense, I think, to wait to see what that legislation looks like.
Yeah.
Either support it or not.
That's what I'm thinking.
Your Keith's experience from a couple of years ago, that feels actually something, I'm not poo-pooing the concern over exotic animals and their treatment, but I have heard the argument from supporters of the fair that this may be the only chance that some folks in this area, particularly in the school district, will ever have to see an exotic animal. That they are not able to go to a zoo where the animals are taken care of. So I have heard that counter argument too. Yes, we want if we could wave the magic wand, we want to make sure that every animal everywhere is treated well.
Why is it sort of a right or a need that a human should see an exotic animal? If that exotic animal is living.
I was going to say,
non-actually
that might even be their bigger argument, is
as
that
itself.
they shouldn't exist at all.
Yeah.
There's the how are they cared for, but then I think for a lot of organizations, I would probably say it's just the belief that it's not even necessary, and neither are zoos for that matter.
But what's uniquely cruel about an exotic animal as opposed to a goat or a sheep? And what's uniquely cruel about being at the fair as opposed to a farm? And what's uniquely, like, where is the bright line here where we get to be like, do this and not this? Because I feel like it's dangerous territory for us ever to tell the town what to do.
Mhm.
And unless we're very, very clear about those things, I don't think, like, this is very, very dangerous territory. I personally am against the whole premise of the thing, because I think the part that's uniquely cruel is the, like, carrying them around from spot to spot.
So that's very different than bringing my prize pig that I grew all year once to this fair.
Maybe,
Like,
but I don't know enough about it to really draw that line. So I would say that if we're going to weigh in on that as a board, I agree that we should wait and see what they're doing and be absolutely clear that our stance is specific to what's happening. Because I don't think we should just be like, I kind of feel weird about, I don't think that's a position that we should be taking.
yeah.
Whereas as individuals, it's super appropriate, I think, to do that.
Well, the other argument, I don't know if it's argument, the other issue with this that I think, yes, animal cruelty, like how we define that, I think from what I've seen passed around online, they get, I think, pretty specific with, investigations into these traveling shows and what they think are happening to the animals. Not going to recite that all here, but the whole other side of it is the public safety angle, which is
There have been some escapes.
right. I mean, with 2-3 years ago, a kangaroo got loose. Like, thank God it wasn't a leopard, right? That could have gone a lot worse. I mean, kangaroos do punch, I guess. Never boxed one, but I guess they can get aggressive. But
I just quickly to clarify, if that's all right. I'm not trying to say that it's not cruel.
no, I
Just
know,
that
no, I
from
know.
a legal perspective, it's difficult to define
Yeah.
a line.
But I think if there's, in terms of, the whole other side of it is, are they taking the proper precautions to make sure it's not, I mean, from what I remember in those shows, it's like, chicken wire here and bleachers right here. Like, are they taking the proper precautions to make sure like things don't get loose? That would be, because that would be bad too. So I don't know if that will play out. I totally agree with, in general, of seeing how what the town
Well,
does,
and
but
to that
that would
end,
be
and
another
you will
part
know
of
a
it.
little bit better than I, because I haven't done this, but like, how does the town get to know that, like, we're interested in this topic? We're watching to see what you do, but we might like to be part of the conversation, not after you've decided everything, or do we want to wait for that? Like, how do we just,
As a board, I think to Ben's point, that's very true. I mean, the
Okay.
reality is, I know I bristle and always have, and probably always will, anytime the town tells the village what to do with the village department.
oh, yeah.
So I don't know that it's particularly different for us to say, hey, town, you've got an issue in the town. And we would love to be able to weigh in on it as a municipality. As individuals, it's completely.
Okay.
We have in the past avoided all kinds of topics, and only when it's risen to the level of, garbage incinerator up the road kind of thing, have we taken a proactive approach as a municipality to tell another municipality what we think of, what they should do.
Or to collaborate and lend our voice. Like, I'm definitely not seeing this as we're telling you what to do, like, but
So-
do we want to have a
So
voice?
as a municipality, as a government, the concept of lending our voice doesn't exist.
Okay,
We are, as a government, telling another government what we think they should do. And I think that a lot of governments, this is my personal opinion, I think a lot of governments say, well, we're just lending our voice, and it's the individual's role to lend their voice.
Okay.
And the government's role to represent all of their constituents in legislative action. So I'm perfect, just like a seeker resolution, which we'll get to at some point. If the town is considering legislation and we want to weigh in on what we think of it, I don't have a problem with that. But advocating for something, I think should be done individually and personally.
yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And honestly, I mean, again, that's just was glad we could talk this out a little bit. But at the end of the day, I mean, really the fight is with the fairgrounds itself. I mean, that's, if you don't want the fairgrounds bringing in a certain show.
Well, and it also
you
sounds
gotta
like,
protest the fairgrounds, really. I mean,
and
that's
it
what
sounds
that
like if our constituents meet us on the street or email us and say, we're very concerned about this, we can encourage them to go to the town. Who
Sure,
is bringing
absolutely.
that issue in front.
So two quick, I'll try and make this very quick, sort of sidebar things. One, have we ever considered marking the name Trumansburg? Which sounds like a joke, but is a
No, it's
serious
not.
question.
It's not.
And two, just like a real off in the weeds thing, for anyone considering signing up for these online things where you just spam local
Oh.
representatives for no reason, all that does is result in us, or me, searching my email inbox for certain keywords and then deleting all of those emails, which means that I'm missing emails from constituents that I should
That
be
might
reading,
have
but
it,
I
right.
do not have the time to sort through a million emails to get to them. So please don't do that. I mean, it's one thing if it's like a legislative staffer that you're spamming, right? If it's like a Senate office, there's some validity to that, but like I have friends who have worked as legislative staffers and it's not very effective that way either. So please just don't do this. Write
Take the
something
Take the extra
specific.
2 minutes literally to write something
Yes.
real.
I will
Yeah.
say, if this is the second time this has happened, the
Yeah.
first time was ironically enough when we launched our gear management program in 2014. And if I recall correctly, that email, total number of emails there was over 3,000.
Yeah.
And I did look through every single one of them, and if memory serves, there was not a single village resident on that list.
There later,
After
there was a
that,
woman who engaged. Yeah,
But not that busy email weekend.
no,
It was
that was
The fall
absurd.
of 2014.
Yeah.
Okay, anything more on the fair? Before we move on. Next item or next board member report is fire. Trumansburg Chamber, speaking of Trumansburg and the village events and tourism.
That's me. I will start with the first one there, fire, which is that I will submit the call report. I neglected to bring that piece of paper that I had with that written on. I apologize, but I do want to comment that there's been a lot of calls for mutual aid or whatever to the school district in their construction project because they keep setting up CO2 monitors. And so we're addressing that. It's not so much a concern, but it is sort of like, what's going on? 15 calls this month just because to check CO2 alarms. And so we'll look to see what can be done, what sort of oversight. And school is coming up. So likely something that's happening, like using a propane generated stone cutter will not be happening. And let's see the other calls. I mean, there was one, as we all know, there was a fatality that accumulated a lot of actual man hours. So you'll see that when I do my report. They are moving along with training. Still really excited about how they have 28 volunteer firefighters who are certified to be interior firefighting, which is just a huge amount, period, let alone the percentage of the force that is. They are, I'll say this other thing and then I'll finish with the nice thing. We did do an hour-long single shooter training with Pat LaBeouf, who is a former Trumansburg citizen and is now living right somewhere in the Saratoga area. I kind of lost New Jersey. He's been in a lot of Connecticut, a lot of different places, but he came and it was a very effective presentation that both the EMS and fire were engaged. What was interesting about that is often when you get to a scene, it's something like 6 to 12 minutes, the entire event is over. And so often the first responders who come, who are organized, are the fire department, because when they show up on site, they already have, you're the chief, you're the lieutenant, you're the, like, we have a protocol. And so really raising the awareness of volunteer firefighters. Are you prepared to deal with what you might encounter? Because you may very well and typically are the most organized on site, because it's not that police aren't, but they're coming from all different kinds of places. They don't just show up as a unit usually, right? So that was really engaging, and there's an opportunity for them to do more training if they want. It sounds like there's actually a lot of, again, just volunteerism. If you want to come take this course, come take this course. There's a lot of reciprocity for education that way. And I do know, and Rodney probably do as well, that there's been some good communication in the school district with some department heads that sort of went on pause during the pandemic, but that there's a plan to come in to sort of talk about what we can do and then to reach out to the community in like a tabletop scenario of just information. So that was comforting because I didn't really know what the school district was up to or any of that, and had been concerned that there might be pushback from citizens who just want to pretend that this doesn't ever happen. And again, falling on the side of preparedness. So that was encouraging. And also encouraging is that the firefighters are planning on having their annual celebration, and they're sorting out locations. So that was just nice to know that they just deserve to have a meal made for them and have some fun. So if you have any other specific fire questions?
Questions for Jessica on fire?
Okay. And let's see, TACC, I don't have anything to report. They're really just working really hard on, they were having bi-weekly meetings for a while and they might now have just switched to monthly. I'm not sure I should follow up because they're just circling the wagons and gearing up and then starting off with their campaign. But it's good. I mean, it's positive feedback. And the Village Etc. Committee, we are working on a community engagement strategy that we're starting to do as like a document for the green spaces to then be able to bring to this board to say, here's an approach. What do you think? So that we can start. And we shifted a notion of a timeline of trying to have a first community engagement meeting in September to just say, look, we're not, let's just do all this in time and make sure everyone's available. And so maybe October. And then right now, the focus for this month is, talking about what's happening at the fair, making sure people know about the parade, and then really supporting the Trumansburg Crit, which is the biggest event that's happening in our village this Saturday. And we've had great support from the businesses and our sponsors, and also a lot of community support, and not any, I haven't heard any, I'm sure there's some, but concerns. And if anyone here or listening at home knows anyone who wants to volunteer to be a corner marshal and be on like the hottest point to view, but also help people stay safe for an hour or two this coming Saturday, you can email me. And you can get to me through the ETC page on the website. We have there's good, so just the cycle community is like all a Twitter that there's actually an event because so many things have been canceled. And we were represented at a mountain bike ride in Bath, and Lots of people are signing up as a result. So that's cool. We're also beginning some conversations about the gateway signage. So starting to meet with with Chris Wolf, one of the potential designers, just to see what's possible, what we have, what he's thinking. I will be writing a letter at the request of the committee to the Little Giant Committee, because the sign and the housing that went, not the sign, but the housing that went up over the Giant does not look anything like the drawings we were shown and the drawings that this board was shown. And we're very pleased that something happened, but it makes them feel uncomfortable as this community outreach program committee, that then we work and then you just do something totally different. It makes it start to feel like collaborating in the future with those representatives is awkward. So that's coming out. And then Winterfest is we're going to start soliciting volunteers this month or at the beginning of September on the social media. We don't have a director or lead committee person. So if anyone's thinking about that in the 90-degree weather, send them our way. I think that is all. Does anyone have any questions about those things?
I just have one.
Yeah.
It's not really a question. If you had a listserv or something for the chamber that just blasts out to everyone.
The
Because-
chamber does, but they haven't been implementing it because they're trying to get their membership strategy solicitation down first. But tell me what you're thinking
The
of.
front porch brochure wraps are empty.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not getting wrap cards, I'm not getting brochures from local businesses. I have obviously both of the, the bigger wine trusts.
Oh, not just chamber brochures. You mean no one's putting out brochures?
Yeah,
no one's
well,
coming to you?
Chamber members generally are the ones that, bring them in and.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of literally a TACC brochure, but you're talking
Oh,
about
no, I'm
all
just talking the
brochures.
front
Okay.
porch, Yeah,
Well, why don't I share that with them?
yeah, if you could, please, and then maybe we can use their email blast. or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Just remind people that, the tourists are here.
Yeah.
and There's not a whole lot of, I find myself printing stuff up. the internet.
Yeah, that's great, Tammy. And that's also a good lead into, by the way, here's a service we offer. Come be a member.
Yeah.
Renew your membership. Okay.
Seem
Great.
to recall, I don't know if there's been any action taken on this, but I seem to recall a rumor of like boxes of brochures that never got put out.
But they might have some.
Yeah, that
Why
were
don't I-
like, that were like stored down at the park over the overlook or something like that. Like there was,
At the overlook.
yeah, like something like they were in a storage area or something. There was a box of like Trumansburg type brochures that never got distributed.
I can, and I'll make mention of that because, this is largely a new body who might not know of a thing that's there. Great.
Yeah.
Sending that email right now. That's it for me.
Any questions for Jess on any of that? Okay. EMS, Youth and Street Tree Advisory.
So for trees, we are running behind this year, unfortunately, as of the last month. Our inventory is now done, but unfortunately, we're in this sort of weird spot where we remove or cause to be removed, or however you want to say it, basically the worst trees in the village last year. So now what our inventory came up with is on a sort of ranking scale where all of the trees that remain are in this kind of weird nebulous zone where it's like, well, that is dangerous. We should do something, but it's a big chunk of like. So our next meeting is I forget, it's next week or the following. Specific strategy. And then obviously make better. That's kind of where we are on that. The youth commission did not have the last meeting. I don't have much to report there, although we will be beginning our budget discussions for that group. Next meeting. EMS is sort of the same. We've done something with the budget today. She has mostly prepared the budget that we're doing now. For some reason, I got stuck with all of the town cycle budget. I feel like that's cruel and unnecessary. But, the other thing I wanted to bring up is the CCA, which community choice aggregation, that is, which we talked about a few months ago. Ben actually brought the draft legislation to the board. You remember how long ago that was, Ben? That was maybe 6 months ago.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that was weird. So maybe a year ago. 3. In any case,
Yeah.
it was a while. It was a while ago. And I wasn't sure Roden had recirculated that, or we had gotten it rather from Rob, who is sort of heading up the municipal. Look at it. I wanted to send that ahead to guys to get his feedback, but I wanted to check in with this board first. I remember at the time there was generally a sort of positive feeling about doing it. This basically, the legislation is really just enabling legislation, so it doesn't really obligate us to do anything, but I did want to get guys' feedback. Just wanted to check in quick, make sure we're all sort of on board with that.
I have not sent it to Guy only because to me, that draft local law looks extremely overly comprehensive for the relatively simple enabling that it does. And so, yes, I think it's good that this board weigh in on how we want to approach it. I mean, Ben Garfler knows well how sending a very simple document to Guy can turn into 4 times as many pages with perfectly sound and particularly in this area where he has a lot of experience, whether it's solar or wind energy. He will certainly want to add as much protected language as possible for the village. And so before we task him with something like that, I think you're right. I think we should have a sense of what are we exactly looking to do at this stage, so that I can explain to Guy whether it's something that we want that can be both ironclad and flexible at the same time, or are we looking for a very narrow kind of enabling kind of function?
Well, I'll just explain quick. I mean, none of this has changed since Ben brought it to us, but it is essentially the premise of CCA is that we would change the default energy supplier in village to one of our choosing, so we would still have, obviously, things like still controls delivery and all of that, but we would have the option to change the default supplier or the CCA. At this point, we have engaged sort of with a broader consortium, although that's not really an explicit agreement that we have, but hopefully moving forward, we will be moving forward with a week of most of Coffin County, which would help us to negotiate. If we were to sort of go this along. But this legislation specifically would enable that structure to obligate us. That's kind of where we are.
Comments, thoughts?
I feel woefully undereducated about this topic, so I don't think that I can say anything, but it sounds like you'd like us to be able to say something soon.
Well, I mean, the reality is that it's actually just as simple as it sounds. It's one of those things that the deeper you go, the more details you find. But this particular piece of legislation just allows us to work. Like it's
Okay. So it's not saying that you will be choosing somebody, a secondary for a primary, or whatever, overnight egg. You just have the right to. Don't we already have the right to? But we don't. We have to legislate to have the right to do that.
my understanding is that it's a bit like the tax levy. So every year we have to override our limits. So we basically have to pass a law that enables us to do it. Is my understanding. Now, this is obviously why I said it's but at this point, that's my understanding.
So how much money do we want to spend on lawyering to pass this legislation? Keith, I'm interested in you or in
How
this
many
topic.
hours of reading that response?
Yeah, but it's, we did have presentations on this topic, right? Memory serves, quite a while ago.
The Portal Cooperative Extension.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So my memory's a little fuzzy and everything. I mean, I seem to recall liking what I heard, right? Choice in energy supplier seems good,
Right.
especially if it's,
Absolutely. No, it may not have been CCA. It was Terry Carroll. It may have been about,
I mean, he came and talked about the clean energy communities leadership round.
yeah. He
And
came for 2
CCA
days.
is a sort of bullet point in draft presentation, so he certainly made, but that was what.
Wasn't that Casey?
No, he was NIPA.
Different.
There are a number of like webinars that have happened over the course of the past year or two that if people want to look at some context and some walkthrough of like what this all means, I'm sure we could pull some together. I think there's a whole website on it.
There's a ton of stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's many hours.
there's also,
No, go ahead.
there's also the approach that I know some municipalities are taking, which is just to wait and see what this organization turns into approach, which I'm not necessarily sure is great, to just sit back and wait. But similar to the formation of the health consortium, there were a number of municipalities that wanted to see what this was going to look like before they even wanted to explore their options to opt in or not. So I'm not, I understand Rod's urgency in continuing to keep the ball moving, where things tend to just lie there and die there. I'm not sure that there's necessarily the same urgency on our part.
I'll throw my personal take. I'd like to be more involved in directing this and where it goes. I think there's an opportunity here to make a large impact on the carbon use of the community if we are involved in pushing it in that direction and making sure we're communicating to the residents and why we're doing this and what the value is and all those sorts of pieces. So it's not a small undertaking necessarily, but I think it makes sense for us to be kind of involved. I'd like to see us more involved, towards the front of pushing this in a good way rather than kind of waiting and seeing where it goes. Because I think if too many people pull that wait and see, it kind of loses steam.
So at this point, status quo is that we are involved and we are part of a sort of small core of municipalities that are pushing. I'm inclined to sort of stay as much as we can in that position, whether that means this or last. But at this point, I know I'm okay to do all sort of the broad strategy. There's a lot of sort of questions about how deep you go and if your target is microgrid, local distributed supply. I mean, there's a whole lot of details that I would like to be involved in, and I think you should be actively involved in strategizing. But the big takeaway is rather than great. I don't think it's an urgency, but I also don't honestly see urgency. This one piece is very small. It's just sort of a box to check.
What I could do with much trepidation, what I could do is send the draft law to Guy and ask simply for the narrow purpose of enabling us to move forward if we so choose, is this overdone or underdone? And then see if he'll just answer that question. That'll be 1,500 words, but at least answer that question before having them actually
Do anything.
redraft the law itself for our
Yeah.
purposes. Ask him, do you think this could be simple? Asking Guy if it could be simplified. Do you think this could be simplified, or is it not even close? And then get a sense from him of what what his recommendation might end up looking like if we authorize him to draft it.
I mean, I think it's also worth pointing out that the other municipalities that will also get to do this.
Right.
So we are, I think in this sense, ahead of the curve, and whatever advice we get from God, we will be able to share sort of a model.
That's great.
Which I think is I mean, obviously, so, yeah.
I feel like that's a modest financial commitment, the way that you described it, Gordon.
Okay.
Ben, on screen. Sava.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the I like the point of if everyone waits and sees how fast do things move forward, you know, not to be dramatic, but you know, you don't have to scroll through much of a news feed to see what's going on out there. So anything we can do to play our little part, I think is important.
Also, I'm just looking at the agenda, that's my last item. I'm realizing that the energy stuff is not really, I feel like I sort of pulled that out of nowhere, and I sort of been thinking of that as not.
Okay.
I'll try and send out that stuff. Or at all. That's fine.
Okay, good. DPW Water Sewer CPZR Farmers Market.
Sure. So I'll try and
Need
keep
an
it
acronym.
kind of brief. Not much to report on the farmers market side, as far as I know. I've been out of town last week, but it continues to be a great draw. I know they're continuing to think of other ways to continue to make use of the space and bring in different variety of both people vending and music, as well as different people attending as well. So they're a very active board, and they've got a lot of great ideas, and we're kind of sorting out how to make everything work and what makes sense for the space and for the community. On the CPZR front, we continue to move forward with zoning. We're continuing to look through the residential zoning chapter. So that's where we're at right now. We continue to make really good progress, I would say. So we're just kind of keeping our heads down and working through it. But there continues to be a lot there as well. So it'll be a long process, but we're making good progress. On the DPW water sewer side, I do have one kind of real action, but before I get to that, I'll just talk briefly about kind of everything that's been happening. It's been actually a pretty busy month for the DPW. So they've been busy patching roads over some of the water main breaks that we've had over the past year. That includes the one on Main Street that I know you were curious about, Jessica. So that's been repaired. The fire hydrant just down the street from there has also been finally fixed, and that's been a couple of years, I think now. Jason asked me that when I was the fire commissioner. So it's been on the list for a while. So that finally got put to rest. The senior class banners got up, which I think everyone has seen on Main Street. The LED light conversion has happened for all of the street lights that are not the decorative street lights on Main Street. We're still waiting on a time frame for that. The parts are back ordered for that conversion, but I know at least for my bedroom, it's darker now, which is nice.
That's awesome. Yeah.
The lights are brighter right underneath, but much dimmer everywhere else, which is exactly what you want out of the lights. And Dusty and myself, maybe one of the other DPWs, maybe Roden, will get some training on the asset management side of things, where we can have better control over the lights, and may also be able to reduce the lighting even further, or adjust it as needed to target areas more effectively. The cemetery bridge project is ongoing. That is still a town project, but Dusty's down there somewhat regularly checking in with everyone, making sure everything's working all right. We've got a draft sewer law that's now out for New York DEC review that MRB is working with. And then the Gregg Street Bridge is slowly starting to move forward. I know Dusty's working with Alan and AccuFab and MRB to sort out the last details of exactly what will actually go down there. I know we've got a good sketch from MRB, but Dusty's got some questions about some of the concrete work. I know AccuFab's got some questions about some of the steel work, so they're just kind of sorting through the details. But if we're lucky, I mean, the aim is to get it done by this year. So, I think Dusty's hoping for end of this month into September. Things will probably slide as they might, but the real intent is to get that done before the winter comes and it isn't kind of possible to do anymore. And then finally, I believe, Roden, actually, you'd probably know if we've posted the position for the 5th employee, and if that stands where that stands. Maybe Tammy, you might know too.
Yeah, I was actually gonna, it has been posted, but I was gonna discuss that in executive session, so.
Got it. So, yep. So we've got that position posted. It's up. And then, yeah, I guess we'll talk about it in executive session. The last piece to chat about is Dusty is looking to purchase another water locator. We currently have one water locator. It is sufficient to have just the one, but it does need repair. It's kind of on it's having some issues, needs repair. It'd be nice to have another one as a backup, but there also have been a number of times when having two on a site would have made things move more quickly. So there's a desire to purchase another water locator, not only to be as a backup, but also to be able to be used simultaneously as needed. The reason I bring it up is that is above the price point for us needing to talk about it as a board. So there is a quote from Pollard Water for $3,140 in the Dropbox. Dusty's been looking for other places to source this from, and so far to no avail. This is kind of the one place to do it. So while we'd like to have more quotes, this is kind of the place to be. So I'd like to move that we accept this quote from Pollard Water for the water utility locator, so that Dusty can purchase another one.
You're moving that, Ben?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Okay. Any discussion, questions?
How does it locate the water?
It's locating the utility lines. So I don't actually know.
It's a
the
really big
details,
dowsing stick.
but I assume it's basically, a large metal detector that's specifically built for this purpose.
That makes sense.
You're not doing this as a permissive referendum, just as out of a budget line?
Yeah, if we need to go out of a budget line, I was talking to Dusty about doing it out of the water contractual line. I wasn't entirely sure if we had to say specifically which line it was, or if it was just to accept the quote itself, and he could sort that out with you.
Okay.
But it was not going to be a permissive referendum, no.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
All right. That's all for me until we get to old business.
any questions on any of the above for Ben? Okay, police.
Quick review of the monthly report for July. 196 calls for service. 4 calls assisting outside of the village, including what looks to be an overdose. Helping the sheriff's department with that. Other than that, nothing too dramatic. Couple domestics, trespass, verbal and physical disputes. People are getting out of the house again. People are going to fight. That's just what happens. But try not to, please. Try not to fight. It's not worth it. If you stay 3 feet apart, you can't fight. It's all move society forward here. So that's about it on the stats, which are available in the Dropbox, by the way. Couple things that have come up. We continue to receive correspondence with regards to speeds on Halsey Street. I've spoken about Halsey Street, I think, in the previous 2 board meetings. We've monitored speeds, both with a car there, and we put the speed recorder there as well a month or so ago, as we did on Wake Street. So I think what I'm going to do at least is get all that data, kind of publish a couple more, make some slides and just publish a more formalized report of the speeds we found. But we're continuing to try to, it's hard, and it's saying this just so everyone who has come forward with speed complaints on their village roads knows that it's not going unheard. We do send a car over there. we can't have a car sit for 24 hours and watch every person that goes up and down. You know, it's hard to catch the one row car that speeds a lot, but we're continuing to monitor. And I know Gordon and I have talked about, you know, talking to establishments that may or may not be producing some of this vehicular traffic that might be guilty of some of this stuff. So going to keep on it, going to keep working on it. And again, hopefully at least publicly publishing some of the data, I think will at least continue to get the message out that to watch your speeds on the village roads. They are small roads. They are not meant for high speed travel. There's a lot of children. We all have children here. As I think everyone saw, we posted about a driver under the influence who hit a 7-year-old in the middle of the afternoon not too long ago. So you know, we want our streets to be safe. We want everyone to obey our speed limits, and we'll continue to work on that. With that said, my last item of business is to bring forward, speaking of permissive referendums.
Wait,
What?
I'm sorry, no, I just broke your flow.
Sure.
But we're talking about Halsey Street, between like coming off Searsburg and Pennsylvania and that little snippet right there.
Yeah.
Come up 227.
227 to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So I think that as a person who traffics 227, and I've been like on a stretch of going 55, and then you come down to 30, but I think it's 25 at Halsey Street, right?
She's 25.
So there isn't, especially if you've driven a distance, which I think many of the people have who are now entering the village, it's not, you're not in the rhythm of going 25. Feels really, so I don't know what I'm suggesting, but if that's really problematic, perhaps the speed should be slower sooner, or some advanced reduction sign that sort of gets the person out of the country 55 rhythm to being in the village, is something to consider.
Well, I mean, I think
just thought of
doesn't
that.
227 turns into a 30.
I know
or
for
also-
like a breath, and then if
Oh.
you turn right there to get to any of those neighborhoods, because you're not going down Main Street, like, no, it's 25. It's 100% the driver's responsibility, totally. I'm just thinking about what other things can we
Sure.
do, what's in our purvey.
That's a great question. So just so everyone is aware, there cannot be any speed adjustment on 227 because it's a state highway. Cannot be posted below 30.
Okay,
I asked about additional speed signs on Halsey Street after you turn on. I was not aware of an obscure state law that says that your speed signs have to be a certain distance apart.
oh,
So we
man,
can't
okay.
we can't have more of that. Thirdly, I will say that unfortunately, most of your speeding on Halsey Street for the last 45 years are locals.
I know, I'm feeling like,
So
That could
it's,
be
it's not, it's not someone coming in from out of town who doesn't know the area and is, oh my goodness, it's slow here. It's everyone who lives here who feels that it's and hey, admittedly, when you take a right on the Halsey from 227, it's a bit of a 45, so it's a nice quick shoot and you're headed down the street and you're gonna be late for school anyway, so you may as well give it some gas. The one speed from a couple weeks ago that Keith had mentioned, someone clocked on that
like 50,
at 70
oh,
was actually headed towards 227. So that means they
I
either
didn't get that
didn't stop at the intersection of Pennsylvania Ave and Halsey, or they stopped and rolled through and then gave it a lot of gas. But it is narrow there. There have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new residents that have moved into the area in the last 5 years, all of which have young children. So
yeah,
it is definitely a concern.
yeah, okay. Well, I'll think deeper on social messaging and something there, raising awareness if we can't do signs. Okay, sorry,
Spike
thanks.
strips.
What did you say?
Spike strips.
Yes.
There's some reason why they really want to come down, we could just use.
Well, I mean, I know every anytime the thought of speed bumps has come up, generally that's despised by both the police department and the DPW crew. So
I think the last 3 or 4 people that suggested it were Halsey Street residents.
yeah,
So,
Yeah, I thought there was a drive.
yeah, we were kind of pushing for that, but I think there was pushback, and well, at that point we were talking about that approach to that 4-way stop on L, because there was a lot of complaints about people making that turn and people walking on that curve. And, you know, there's signs up for 15 miles per hour, but you know, you got to be paying attention to see them. But I think there was some resentment to the idea of even, testing out temporary speed bumps. I sent options to buy them, and I don't know. But maybe we follow up on that. But I mean, the good news is, from what I've heard, I haven't seen the exact data, but you know, 95% of people are in compliance.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So it's just the one car that goes 70, or you know, occasional fast car. But at the same time, you know,
It only
if
takes
5% of the people are being reckless, yeah, it takes one bad maneuver. So again, we'll stay on it and try to think through how we can slow people down.
the data would be interesting, because I'm just guessing. I'm familiar with one street. I wonder how many cars a day travel down that road in either direction. It's got to be a couple hundred. So 5% of a couple hundred is still
Yeah.
10 people.
Yeah, and it could offer some education to people. I mean, even if, you know, it's a 25, maybe, well, I can go 35, not 25. It's an opportunity to kind of say that even that might be a little too fast, you know, with the reaction time on a thin road with kids running around, you know, just even that's a little fast. So,
Which is, okay, and we're talking about this in incessantly, but I haven't seen a single "Be Slow, Kids Live Here" sign. Maybe one.
there's
One.
at least one on that road.
There's one. So if people are bringing it up to you directly, I mean, I would encourage, I noticed those, or the wavy,
Yeah.
they're not like, you know, but you do, you're like, oh, right. So if you're in a daze of having just traveled and you're like, oh, I'm somewhere, that they have some stuff they can do on their own. They don't have to wait, right? They can take,
Do we paint the road? Do we
paint it.
kids live here, slow down?
Yeah, those two, show one each of those wavy things on either side of the street
Yeah.
with spike strips.
With spike strips.
All right.
The dandy was paint. No, paint the shoulder green, except since there's no shoulder. Really kind.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if some of those speeds that Warren mentioned, you know, somebody going 70, somebody going 50 on that road. I'm
That's
not-
nuts.
You're like almost doing it intentionally. Like, I don't even know what kind of signage is gonna make you consider that.
Right. No, you're
Kind of
just being
behavior, so-
reckless. Yeah. Selfish.
Like, they're kind of better,
Is there a way for something to detect your speed?
And then deploy.
20 feet in front of you, the spikes pop up?
So, you know, we looked into years ago, we looked into traffic camera ticketing.
Oh,
Last I knew, it was not legalized in New York, which is odd because they do it for tolls.
yeah.
I would still like to see, like, we could do it, but not issue tickets.
Catch
Something.
them.
Couldn't we find out who was doing it?
Get something in the mail, so you would have received a ticket.
Not issue a ticket, but
I don't know if the municipality could. No, but that's something that
Huh.
to look into.
So Vicky, slow down.
Where is it? Oh,
Vicky, slow down.
I'm kidding.
Okay, now,
Anything else for police?
yes, back to Back to our permissive referendum
yes.
already in progress.
Yes, indeed.
We need to purchase a new vehicle.
Speaking of being able to go fast.
Yes. Our Ford Explorer is in not good shape. So in the Dropbox, I have a village Trumansburg permissive referendum asking to adopt a resolution appropriating up to $37,000 from the police vehicle reserve to pay for a 2021 Ford Explorer. I would like to move that.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or conversations?
Just like to say officially that I'm going to defer to you and the chief for judgment on this one, but I'm still very, very skeptical about it. But I'll leave it there for not have the conversation, Joe, that I have been needing.
So noted.
I will also add that I have had a couple of different conversations with village residents, not just police department specific, but village vehicles in general, what our efforts are in moving towards hybrid and or electric. I have told everyone who's asked that I'm in no way, shape, or form opposed to that. But they are just very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
There is a, I think it's a Ford. There is a police package SUV, similar style to the Explorer. That is, I think it's all electric. It doesn't lose any speed or power compared to its non-electric competitors, but I think the state contract bid price is close to 90,000.
That's good. Yeah.
So somehow, some way, someday, but for now, be budget conscious with these vehicles.
We'd probably have to put in a charging station. Well, that's something to consider. I don't get the feeling that the other Explorer is also in the best of shape. So I say we replace this one, and then I'm happy to have an honest conversation with Joe about the need to.
Oh, it's fully, I didn't mean to bring up that.
No, it's okay.
that's
No,
great.
it's a good point. You know,
Talk
but
about the budget and not follow through with that, so.
it sounds like both of those cars are not in the best shape. So one of them's gonna definitely gonna have to replace one of them.
We're still dealing with some, both of these Explorers are several years old now, and there had been some work done on them at one point that was less than friendly to their electrical systems.
And all that I was spending, every time I came up here for a while, Joe was just out in the park. Very.
Sometimes it's not worth it to go with the homemade solution.
Let's save $1 cutting the corner, spend $2 fixing it later. Any other questions or comments on this vehicle purchase? Subject to permissive referendum, hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's
Nice.
No, he didn't go out to deem the 13 of them for use.
yes, I think he is ready to. I think he did say he is ready to take that out of service.
Okay.
Does that require?
Does.
The 2013.
Yeah,
So are you moving that, Keith?
I would move to officially take the 2013 Ford Explorer out of service.
A motion and a second with a friendly amendment to add to that, to take it out of service and deem it of no further use to the village. Any comments, conversation, questions? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's it for police.
That's it for police.
Then we move on to treasurer, Vicky.
So I've done 3 ARTA trainings to get ready for, whatever's to come and whatever they spend the money on. I do understand that there is a report due on 8/31 about what our plans, the first amount of money.
Do you have a template?
No, but I can probably find it. Okay. So, we did get the 87,000 and change that are, for whatever you want to use it for. Fire and EMS budgets are 95% complete. Ben, there's a couple things that Ben wanted me to do in comparison. But I can put them in the Dropbox and send them to Gordon. And then when the part that Ben wants is a small part, but you can actually see what the budgets are. Okay, so I'll do that tomorrow to make sure they're in the Dropbox. We have a couple dates, but Gordon's deciding there's some things he wants to look at. So we should have a firm date. I mean, I'm going on vacation for a week, so next week.
Are those, should I just check in on the doodle poll about what you're looking at, or did I miss a thing?
No, you did it.
No, for the meeting, for the dates that are in
Oh,
consideration?
no, we haven't decided. I just.
Oh, okay.
Then
Okay, like
everybody could attend.
just where it lined up, okay.
Yeah.
So if I were
Yeah.
curious or,
Yeah, you can look.
Okay.
Send it to me and I'll probably decide this week.
Okay. The first thing that I have is, and I'm sure this would become cool because I haven't done it before, but we need to add Ben Carter to our general water sewer and trust and agency checking accounts as deputy mayor, which will take Debbie's name off. I have the form, but generally the bank has required, it's kind of like a resolution that you guys say that it's okay for me to do that.
They should take our organizational meeting agenda
Okay.
and adoption.
That's what the
So
dashboard
that's
was
what they've done
at.
in the past. Because that section where the officers are named is adopted by resolution.
Okay, that's fine. I can do that too. I also want to let you guys know that this is happening. So I will do that. The other thing that I have, there are the budget modifications that have been in the Dropbox. And for Jesse, those are, we take money from one budget line to balance another budget line. So it all comes out in the wash, so to speak. So I did as many as I could with the money that was left over.
Okay.
It's just general water and sewer we do this for, sorry.
And is Dwayne seen this?
Not yet. He doesn't usually see it until I do get the last of the AED with him.
Usually adopt it though after he's seen it though.
Oh, well, I'm happy to send it to him. No, I didn't.
Let's
Yeah.
have him,
Okay,
let's have him bless it first.
okay. Yeah. That's gonna be really close on the AED because we only have until September 30th. No.
Oh.
Until October.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. If we want to hold off, I'll send that to him. That's not a big deal. Other than that,
oh, get it, okay, gotcha.
Anything for, like,
No,
and we will be on vacation for next Tuesday.
okay, enjoy.
Thank you.
They're traveling.
No, my niece is getting married.
There'll be cake maybe, and
And we're
dancing.
all involved, so it'll be fun.
okay.
Love a good
Clerk,
wedding.
Tammy. You're up.
So month of July, we wrapped up a good portion of the property tax collection. At this point, as of this evening, we have $84,719.07 outstanding. I do have a couple of payments in the office that I'll post in the morning. I'm also working on getting the water and sewer bills out at the end of the month. I've been very busy with tax searches and final bills this seems to be a lot of transferring of properties and lots of tenant rotations, and that's been really busy. I think that's about it. I'm just really busy. But unless anybody's got any specific questions, I did make some corrections on our website over the weekend, just changing some names and getting some things updated. Ben Darfler, you had asked me about updating the outdoor seating permit, dining permit, I'm sorry. And I did not get to that today, but I will finish it up tomorrow. Thank you. I think that's it.
So we actually have some permits that have been submitted, some applications for outdoor seating. Are they in play? Is that a question to ask the clerk?
We had suspended the need for the filing of the permits.
Okay.
Effective last year.
So people could be maximizing that right now?
Absolutely.
Ah, okay. Well, I guess some of them are. Just not the one I want. Okay.
Remove some obstacles, some bureaucratic
Obstacles,
obstacles
yeah.
due to COVID last year.
Great, I'd
That's
forgotten entirely about that.
Still in effect this year.
Thank you.
I do have one more thing, and I'm sorry, and I meant to ask, are we going to continue to go forward with not charging penalties and fees on water bills? So I know there's a bunch of really weird caveats out there as far as about who you can charge and who you can't, and what they have to provide, so.
So our local legislation last year stated that there would be no late fees charged while a state of emergency existed in New York. The state of emergency has been lifted. So that would indicate that we should be charging those. We're not charging anything retroactively, just going forward. And I was of the impression that those caveats to what can be charged and what can't be charged was also tied to the existence of the state of emergency. If that's not the case, then it'll have to be a guy question.
I think after reading and rereading the stuff that Ben Darfler sent to me, the NICOM bulletin, if you will, I kind of walked away from that after reading it again, that there seemed to be, even after the state of emergency, some places where we couldn't, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. So if you read
to me, and then they have a different understanding of it, but to me, that would be a guy question, not a NICOM question.
Yep.
There's been enough things that NICOM has interpreted over the last 18 months that I'm not sure are correct, that I would want guys' opinion.
I'm good with that.
But then I don't know if you have a different understanding of what
Yeah,
moratorium might still exist.
It was around re-levying, which is something we actually already did. I'm unclear. I'm not 100% clear. I think it may be a guy question, seeing as there are some things that it looks like there are some criteria or restrictions up through the end of this year, but exactly what they are and how they play in and what we've done in the past, yeah, I'd feel better having Guy give us some guidance.
So. Just
Just go straight to guy and say that now that the state of emergency has been lifted, are there, the simple question, are there any restrictions on our ability to charge late fees for water and sewer? Anything else?
Yes.
Any questions for working? Okay, your turn, Ben. Old business.
So this is a bit interesting. We had a plan and the plan has changed. I've been chatting with Guy today to have him review the declaration of lead agency, which he found fine. But in doing so, we got into a different conversation, and it's unclear what the next steps are for a timeline for reviewing this. it looks like we may need to have the comprehensive revision committee hold a public hearing and then formally present the document back to this board to make sure that we're following all of the right procedure. So I'm still sorting out exactly what the next steps are here. I do feel that at this point, us declaring lead agency seems reasonable, though I'm open to other conversation around that. I just don't think it makes a ton of sense to schedule a public hearing or review the part 2 of the seeker review, because that should really be done on the final version. And if we're going to go through another round of, not another round, but if something were to come out of the public hearing in front of the comprehensive committee, we should have that happen before looking at part 2. I'll also say that part 2 is very straightforward. And so I think it would take us 10, 15, 20 minutes at most when we actually decide to review it. So I'm not too upset about pushing that off till a later date.
What's your thoughts in terms of when CPZR can hold a public hearing?
The easiest thing would be at our next meeting, because we'll all kind of have that on our calendars, which would be, well, there's one a week from this Thursday, the 19th, but I'm not sure if that's too soon. I think that's too soon. Even if we could notice it in time, and I don't remember the requirements for that. I haven't mentioned it to the committee because I only heard about it today. Seems a bit too quick. What we could do would be the September one would be the 16th in September, would be one opportunity. Another thing I just thought of, still didn't really help, was to somehow repurpose the Thursday or Tuesday meeting, the 17th, the public information meeting, but I think again, that's too fast to kind of turn things all on its head. The other only option is then for the committee to have a conversation on the 19th of this month and just pick a different date that works for everybody. So it's either, some other date, kind of end of August, beginning of September, or potentially reusing our September meeting, which would be the 16th of September.
So here's a suggestion, and up to the committee what they want to do. But if next week on the 19th, given what we know of public hearings, that they'll either be very well attended or not attended at all. If you were to schedule, what's your notification, 10 days?
Well, I was just gonna ask you, is there a notification because they're not a public industry?
According to the guy, they are for the purpose of comprehensive plan amendment.
Right, so I need at least 3 days to get it to the Ithaca Journal, and then I think it has to be posted for no less than 5 days. But I would have to double check that because comp plan stuff is a little can differ from general public news.
Yeah, I can try and look that up real quick because I know
That'll still work though, even if it's a 10-day notification window, it would be too long. But what if the committee was interested in having a special meeting just for the public hearing, so as to not use up your committee time on the zoning work, and do that late the week of the 6th of September, so Wednesday the 8th, Thursday the 9th kind of time frame. That would have to be in person.
Right.
But if the committee would do that, then assuming nothing goes sideways at the public hearing, you could formally resolve to present it to the village board, and then we could declare lead agency, review part 2 of seeker on the 13th.
Yep.
September, and then schedule our public hearing for our October meeting.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense, is to try and bump things out just a month and see if we can't squeeze it in there. So let's see. And so if that was, you're saying that first full week, so the 6th, and so backing out from that, you were saying, Tammy, you would need, most of 10 days or something in there.
Yeah, I'm looking up to see what the guidance is on, or what the requirements are right now.
Great. I think because it says, I
I mean, it is what it is. We don't have to rush it, but there is a way to kind of sort of stay on our timeline.
Yeah. No, I think that would work. I think what I'm thinking is we can have that conversation on the 19th. And as long as I turn that right around to Tammy real quick, that should give us enough time to get it out. There's 2 full weeks in there before that week of the 6th. I think I'm seeing public hearings shall be published in newspaper at least 10 calendar days in advance of the hearing based on the
My
section
building
there.
must be correct.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave a good 2 weeks.
Yeah. So when would you want to know by? Would the 19th be workable? Or otherwise I can start a conversation over email with the committee, see if we can get something sooner.
Is that 10 calendar days?
I think it's just, I don't think it specifies business days, I just asked.
10 calendar days.
Okay. So actually, if you decide next week, if the committee wanted to do something the 8th or 9th, you're almost 21 calendar days out.
Yeah, so we're pretty set. Okay, so I'll make sure I put it on the committee's agenda as our first thing. We'll talk through trying to find a date that works, that week of the 6th. That'll give us enough time for notice, but before our meeting. And unless we hear something, massive coming out of that, we can continue here with reviewing seeker. And I'm fine either way. We can either hold off on declaring lead agency or we could declare it. I suppose there's probably no harm in continuing to let people respond to our letters, though we haven't heard any concerns so far.
Is there still a public info session on the 17th, the farmer's market, or is that old?
There is. No, there still is. Yeah.
And I've yet to hear back. We're still pending. I've left 2 voicemails at the school regarding using the auditorium, and I'm still not having any luck, but I'll call again tomorrow.
Thank you.
And didn't we announce our intention to be lead agency like 2 months ago?
So last month we sent out letters and declaring our intent.
Oh, it was just 1 month. Okay.
Yeah. So
Declaration of intent.
What's that?
It was a declaration of intent. It wasn't the actual declaration of.
Yeah, I thought I
Right.
said something like the word intent. I guess I didn't. Yeah.
So actually, I think the lead agency declaration itself, I don't think anyone's going to challenge this comp plan process. However, if someone was going to, I think the lead agency declaration probably does come after the official presentation of the document from the committee to the board.
yeah,
So-
I'm happy to hold off on all this to just kind of put a pause on it. None of this will take us particularly long. I've been trying to kind of make sure we're not doing too much of any one thing any evening, but if we just pack some more, if we just push everything out a month, then so be it. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Then the only thing at that point, back to Jessica, your point on this public information meeting, I would like to chat as a board how we can potentially entice more people to show up. And so I had been thinking a little bit around, having food and drink there for dinner. It'll be at 6 p.m. So it's very much dinner time. And then something to keep kids busy so that it's more family friendly. That could be as little as just kind of opening up that play structure there that's open during the market, or maybe getting, who knows, chalk for people to chalk on the sidewalk or the parking lot a bit, or whatever ideas we might come up as a board to make it a little easier for people to show up.
Also, do you want to submit that to the town clerk's newsletter, weekly newsletter? Have you done that?
I do, and I have not. So thank you for that reminder.
And or ask Tammy. I don't know if Tammy does that for us.
I'm happy to shoot a quick email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Especially if you have this extra hospitality associated with it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm open to any, reasonable modest expenditure on the part of the village to attract attendees.
I'm happy to help any way I can. I think it's gonna be really hard to gauge how many people to expect. And with things like pizza, we have to do. We have to do
It's
vegan,
COVID.
we have to do vegetarian, I mean, it gets kind of complicated. I'm happy to do it, I just need some direction.
Baskets of apples and buckets of water. That's where I'm at. Actually, not a bad idea.
Apples will have to be individually wrapped.
No, we can have a
Oh,
sanitation
yeah.
station, which is also fun to say.
I mean, we could do maybe fruit trays and.
Or not even, I'm telling you, like in its thing, get some clementines and some, I don't know, but whatever. What about, what is this for? Or, yeah, and then what would you do with that after?
The same thing we do, we just parcel it out.
Yeah.
Ben's trying to actually attract people to come to this.
I know, which is why it
Yeah.
needs to be apples and oranges. It's gotta be something, but there's something like, yeah. fruit
Food
tray.
truck, can we get a food truck to park there?
Dude, you gotta promise
Was
them
it-
350.
Let them make their money?
Would it be disastrous to like start with a Garrett's tasting?
Yes.
Yes.
What do you think? This is France? Come on. You could have wine at the polls? Come on.
Get people nice and relaxed before the
If
conflict.
we've been thinking, we would have held the public information meeting at Garrett's,
Right.
Yes.
except he's not open on Tuesdays.
Which is why that's perfect.
Right, yeah. And as far as the having a place for the kids to do something, I'm fine with that, but who's going to supervise that?
It's just like farmer's market. If we open it, it's available.
Yeah.
Do you think one of the food trucks would advertise and say Tuesday night, August 17th, we're gonna be parked here, and then we can,
You guys, that's in a week. That's nuts.
Come
I mean, I love
enjoy
you.
the
I'm not
comp
gonna-
plan paella.
What about one of the market vendors? What about a cheese tasting? What about Hugo Creamery? Is there anyone that you want to cross-purpose? Hey, we're at the market. Hey, you're drawing attention. Hey, this is a different diverse thing. Again, it's only a week, but who's got slightly non-perishable tastings that they want to do and sales, or I don't know.
I don't think
Otherwise, I'm
there's-
all about the
If you
fruit
want
tray.
people, just do it during a market night. No music, comp plan. Just
Oh.
that.
They'll never come back. You'll lose them all.
I mean, I
agree.
like,
How do we get an audience? I'm just telling you.
yeah, I like the ideas, but I feel like practically if I'm trying to make sure that, people with kids show up, I feel like, getting a cheese sheet pizza or two and just saying we'll have pizza and we'll have water, soda, we could kind of go either way. Get people there, open up the structure and say like, it's like market, play there if you want to. I don't know.
So are you gonna advertise this heavily on the 11th at market, that this will be happening? So I'm just looking at the timeframe
Yeah,
of
I
village
won't,
who plans
won't
that, who's on
pers-
vacation, like,
I won't personally be able to do that on the 11th. No. I mean, it's, yeah, I struggle mightily with like how exactly to reach as many people. We've sent out postcards. I've been on the radio. It's been in the newspapers. I'll make sure it's in Chris's email. It'll be on Facebook and the website again. I don't know. Yeah.
I mean,
it's-
printing out a poster of acknowledgement of that and putting it up at market is a very good idea. You don't have to stand there and tell everyone, but like, there's a lot
Yeah.
of people that go there. They're engaged community members.
It's true.
And I would offer you something to consider and for this board, which is that instead of a food and beverage thing being a draw, it's just kind of a complimentary service that builds general goodwill. That, when you show up to village things, there's a little snack. Not like, I'm going for the snacks, plus I'll listen to the comp plan. Like it just, maybe at this stage in the game,
Yeah.
that's not a
well,
bad idea.
I think that's a good point. I was just thinking of like, I'll be there, my family will be there, but I'm part of this board. I mean, otherwise I think people would show up, but have a hard time showing up at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday with a family. I think that's difficult if there isn't, if we don't make that easier by having something for the kids, some food to kind of ease that. So yeah, I don't think it's like come for the free pizza and stick around for the comp plan, but I do think it's acknowledging
You could also encourage
That stops
picnicking.
working after freshman year of college.
So for what it's worth, I totally am with that on that. I think that would make the difference for me. I think it's like an enabling action.
Yeah.
For anyone, I mean, no one's coming to the pizza, but I definitely agree with that. That's like a good.
I know certainly during caucuses and stuff like that, it's been like the childcare thing is huge. Like,
Childcare is huge. Yeah.
is there something for the kids to
And a
do?
snack is
I'll
nice.
come, but is there something for my kids to do? If not, like, I'm not gonna sit there and have my 4-year-old throw a fit during the caucus and then have to leave. So if there's entertainment. I mean, I think that's even bigger than snacks, but that's just as a parent. I can
So
bring
do bo-
snacks.
Well,
Like,
so
is there
do
something
both,
for
do
them?
both, and then also say, you know, we're providing blah, we encourage you to picnic. Bring your supper, picnic, and there'll be childcare. I mean, that's like a
No, there
C.
won't be childcare.
I mean, no, I mean, sorry, whatever. They're encouraging the children and
Opportunities
there's
for
a
child
play
to
structure.
play.
Very careful with the language to use.
Yes.
All right, just hire Hildy.
I think it's fine, Ben. I think that if we open the playground and supply a lot of pizza and we have the same turnout we had with the virtual meeting, we will know exactly where everyone stands on this. Which I think is a reality that after our virtual public information meeting, may be a reality that we have to face, which is some things only attract a crowd after people are upset about something. This is one of those, then so be it, but we'll do our part.
All right, well, how about this? I'll follow up with you, Tammy, and give you a couple ideas of what to bring. And we'll sort it out. But I think, yeah, it's probably a sheet pizza or two. I'll give some
Got it
thought.
done. We're good. We got it. I've been doing this for a long time.
Okay, please, thank you.
You're
Set us up with some pizza and soda.
You're off the hook until.
No
we
soda,
run out of
no
pizza.
No soda, pizza and water, and
Or
pizza and
seltzer,
water.
soda.
Seltzer. There
Sorry,
you go.
No soda,
2021, no
water,
soda.
Coolers of water, period.
Do you know how to get into, do we have a key for the kit that play structure? Is that something you got it? Great. Thank you, Tammy.
You're always welcome. Ben.
Then with that, I think that might be it for now. We have just pushed out our timeline by a month.
Okay, good. Any other items of old business?
I think we should just take a brief moment and just emphasize again that laundry list of ways that this publicized this comp plan. Because I think that's phenomenal, and you breezed through it very quickly. But I think that's phenomenal, and I just want to emphasize that, and also at this point, you guys, like community reciprocity on that. Like every year budget season, I'm like, oh, again. And then to have all of this effort to put into that is immensely. I know I'm like, no one's even listening, but I like, I just want to say that out loud, personally to thank that. Secondly, just to say,
Thank you.
Yeah.
You get the point.
Understood. Any items of new business that failed to make its way at paper print? Okay. Seeing no members of the public present virtually or in person, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a couple of different personnel issues, a couple of different legal and contractual issues as well.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Second, I'm going to stop the live stream and the recording.
Stop it.